Hey folks, how's it going? Today we're talking about Del Toro's Pinocchio, a stop-motion animation beauty, and obviously, the best animated Pinocchio film of 2022. Disney, screw your remake. Pinocchio, a true story, you're a good meme, that's it. But here we have the champion, and we're bowing down to it. There is so much broad appeal to the Pinocchio IP. First off, it's public domain. Also, it's very universal. It has themes that a lot of folks can relate to about life, death, rebirth, being naive, father, son. It's a good, applicable, accessible story. And that is why it is such a hit when it comes to the public domain. Yeah, you got like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. You got Cinderella, but Pinocchio is much more interesting as a concept. Especially when it's done in the hands of a person who's like, no, we can actually like really peel back the layers of this story, aka Del Toro. Like Del Toro loves Pinocchio, and he loves animation too. And it sounds like he's been wanting to make this movie for a very long time. Like, gosh, for decades. And that is why it was stuck for over a decade in production hell. Like this film almost never happened. It was almost in 2D, but Del Toro fought for stop motion. It was passed around Hollywood, and it was almost killed. But then Netflix was like, hey, we'll buy it. So lo and behold, they got the distribution, and we get to see this vision in its full glory. It's kind of good that it was delayed, because in the process, Del Toro brought on Pat McHale, the creator of Over the Garden Wall. Well, Pat was brought on to help write the movie, which was just a really good call. Over the Garden Wall is like one of the best things made on Cartoon Network. It's atmospheric, has a great story. It's good for kids and adults. I mean, I love the entire thing. It's kind of got that creepy energy of folklore. And it's like, well, that's kind of the core concept of Pinocchio itself. So bring on Pat with Del Toro's vision as well. Boom, we got a winning team here. You also got Shadow Machine doing this for stop motion animation. These folks worked on Robot Chicken. They got a robust filmography. So again, quite the dream team here. Now, the synopsis for the film, because this one is quite different compared to the other Pinocchio adaptations. Like the original Pinocchio that most folks know is the one from Disney with like Geppetto and Pinocchio and Figaro and Cleo. And it takes place in Italy in the late 1800s. While for here, it is Italy in the early 1900s with the Great War, with Geppetto having a biological son who dies during the Great War, where enough time had passed where Pinocchio, when he became alive, was kind of during the rise of fascism portion for Italy. Like that caught me off guard. I'm like, whoa, hold on. Mussolini? Wait, was that in the original Pinocchio? No, it wasn't. This is Del Toro adding to the entire Pinocchio lore, and I am here for it. Like that is where the Pinocchio IP can really glow, is when you do something with it, something different. In this movie, Pinocchio is more of the impetuous, dummy kid, kind of acts like a brat, but means well, naive, a bit of a temper. Dad, I want this. I want it now. He actually acts like a child compared to like Carlo, who of course is like Geppetto's kid, but he was like a well-behaved kid. So you've got like this juxtaposition of Geppetto losing his son, having a well-behaved boy, wanting him back, and then being like, I'll bring back my son, I'll do it myself. And he made Pinocchio. And in the process, Pinocchio was brought to life by this blue, we'll say blue fairy. And it's more like an angel-looking creature. Very cool design, though. And Geppetto's like, oh, wow, he's actually alive. I don't like you. You're not my son. And that's like a big part of this movie, is Geppetto accepting Pinocchio, comparing him to Carlo, being like, well, you're not Carlo. And the answer is like, well, yeah, he's not. He's Pinocchio. Pinocchio goes on a journey that kind of hits a few of those bullet points of the original concept, where he is a performer with a puppet master, where he does go to the island of Pleasure Island, but like not really. It's different in this version. There's Monstro as well. So there's similarities, but they expand on it. Like Pleasure Island is like a military training camp for the Italian youth, for like Mussolini and soldiers. The puppet master is like a new character. He's a combination of like Honest John, kind of. He's not as good or as memorable, but he serves his purpose of like, I want to hire Pinocchio to perform for me. And like, oh, I have your best interest at heart, Pinocchio. Not really. You got Jiminy Cricket, though it is Sebastian, voiced by Ewan McGregor. And it actually looks like a cricket for once. Cool, I dig it. Just flawed characters across the board. I like that. It creates friction, especially with Geppetto and especially for Pinocchio. Because for the original Pinocchio, I was thinking like, because like we're so used to the Disney Pinocchio, a wide-eyed kid who gets in over his head, but is like, oh, I didn't mean to do the wrong thing. I'm just being kind of forgetful and I didn't know any better. And I'm under the assumption that the original Pinocchio story, because this is kind of the case, is like Pinocchio is deliberately being a jerk, a brat, being malicious. It's a pretty dark story. So like for Del Toro to have an adaptation, it's like, well, yeah, we're gonna get some of that darkness. Finally, it's gonna get maybe even depraved. Apparently, Pinocchio in the original even killed Jiminy, which is like a running gag in this movie where Jiminy, quote unquote Sebastian, dies multiple times, getting squashed, but keeps coming back to life. I thought that was pretty funny. But to have these characters portrayed with their human-like flaws, it's nice. It's like Geppetto is a father who, in the Disney one, he's like, oh, I guess Pinocchio is my son. I love my son. Here, it's like, it's combative, where he can be like downright cruel and intimidating to the new Pinocchio, where he's like, I don't want you, and I'm not very like loving of you. You're not my Carlo. But then that's part of his arc. He grows over time to love Pinocchio. He heals his heart. It's so sweet. And really having like this fascist setting for Italy really speaks to like the entire like puppet theme going on, because you've got Mussolini, who is in the movie, and he actually goes to the puppet show and he's like, I look puppets. And it's like, of course the dictator loves puppets. And it's like, that makes sense thematically. So we get this dark tone in the movie, but it's never like downright depraved or nihilistic or insincere. It's dark as in like, okay, there's some danger, deaths involved. There can be some action that can be not as soft as what we're accustomed to nowadays for a lot of like quote unquote kid media. Because this isn't like a kid's movie, it's a family movie. It's accessible and appropriate for kids and adults alike, or respectively. The same way with like a Ghibli film, where it's like there's excitement, but it's a good story that doesn't feel like it needs to pander with the lowest common denominator. Like there is, albeit, a scene where Pinocchio is like making a song to insult Mussolini and makes his own version where he's like poop and farts. And it's like, okay, there it is. But like, it's not, that's like the only moment in the movie where I'd say it's a little bit lowbrow, but in a way where it never was grating. Again, themes of death, rebirth, grief and love, father and son and relationships and growing and loving on one another. Very potent, where you get Pinocchio who cannot die. He, apparently it's one of the things with him being brought to life is that he can never truly die. And he meets like the other side of the spectrum for the Blue Angel, who's more like a blue, like, I guess, demon in a way, in charge of death. Amazing design. Love the design. You get the hourglasses being like, well, sometimes life is suffering, so eternal life means eternal suffering. And Pinocchio coming to grips of like what death really is. How he's like, it's not that bad. And it's like, okay, cool, but like Geppetto will die someday, and then you'll keep living. And it's like you see him coming to terms with mortality and what it means to be alive, to be a real boy. Again, that's like the main thing about Pinocchio, being a real boy, the human experience. And that's a cool part of this story arc, is that Pinocchio never becomes flesh and blood a real boy. He becomes one in spirit, which I think is more potent, that like he was always a real boy and he did it through his own soul, not that he has to do it via his own body. I thought that was powerful. And my God, the creation of Pinocchio with Geppetto like getting drunk, that scene was so sad. There was a tree that was planted near Geppetto's son's grave, and it grew and a pine cone fell down. And again, that's the entire thing about life and rebirth, about how one story ends, another one begins. Geppetto cuts down the tree in a drunken rage, carves Pinocchio, who like, Pinocchio's design is just brilliant. He's like an unfinished puppet, looks rough around the edges with like nails and bolts in his body. And then you've got like Pinocchio, who when it comes to life is in the attic, and he's like moving around this uncanny twitchy fashion. It's terrifying. I loved it. It was truly horrifying, like a horror movie. Also reminded me of Frankenstein, with the entire like father bringing a creation to life and kind of resenting it for like not really understanding what life is. I definitely picked up on that. And of course, the animation itself is just God tier. Like the most beautiful stuff. From the designs of the characters, their movement, it's all brilliant. It's also technically sound and genius. Geppetto with like the dirt, the details of the dirt in his fingernails. Pinocchio's design, the Blue Angel, the fairy, the demon, I guess the Grim Reaper. Just across the board, just genius design. I love it. The rabbits and like the afterlife, brilliant. Love them with their like decaying bodies. It's so macabre, but genius. It really has been an amazing year for stop motion animation, from like Marcel the Shell, Mad God, The House, Wendell and Wild, which story-wise, it was all right, but visually wonderful. But I feel like here with Del Toro's Pinocchio, it's like, wow, what a way to wrap up the year for stop motion animation. We've been eating good this year. But if I had to think of like critiques for the film, I would say the following: that the composition, like the actual soundtrack for the movie, exceptionally good. The songs themselves, kind of forgettable. I didn't think they had much staying power. The pacing for the film was very good, though the film itself in its entirety, I think it could have been trimmed down just maybe like 10 to 15 minutes. It's a bit long, and there are some little lulls occasionally with the pacing, so it's a bit long on the tooth. I would say that as well. And also for like the main villain, who's like a new character that Del Toro fielded, who kind of represents like Honest John and Gideon or whatever, and like the Stagecoach Master kind of. He's not the most memorable villain. I thought he was like, he serves his purpose, but he doesn't have the same staying power as like the villains from like Disney's Pinocchio, in my opinion. The original. Let's get that clear. But then you have other characters brought in, like where you've got the fascist father, and then you got his son, I think it was a Candlewick or whatever. That was refreshing. That was a good way to kind of see the father-son relationship between Geppetto and Pinocchio, and then the fascist like soldier father, and then his son who's trying to be his dad, but also terrified of his dad. That was beautiful. A wonderful moment on Pleasure Island, quote unquote, between Pinocchio and the other kid, just being these confused, hurt boys trying to understand their fathers. It's very sweet. So overall, this entire movie is brilliant. I thought it was worth the wait. They stuck the landing. There's a few little critiques here and there, but the overall film is just genius, and I highly recommend it. So, hey, what do you all think about the film? Tell me in the comments down below, and I'll see you all next time.